Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. I hope you are having a great day so far. So today I'm going to be doing another makeup and musings video where I'm going to be getting ready using some products that I haven't had a chance to talk about on my channel yet, or revisiting some that I have recently reviewed. So I'm going to be using the Urban Decay Wild West palette for the first time on my channel. I'm also going to be dipping into the Nars Euphoria Eye and Cheek palette. I'm going to be using one of the new Laura Mercier blush shades, as well as revisiting the Dior Forever Natural Nude and demoing the ABH Brow Freeze and the new Huda brow pencil for the first time. I'm also going to be revisiting the Benefit their Real Magnet mascara and showing you this new lip shade from Charlotte Tilbury. And at the same time, we're going to be delving into a new topic for discussion. And what we're going to be talking about today is the fact that Molly-Mae Hague has decided to reverse her cosmetic procedures, her fillers, her teeth, her dental work, things like that, and reverting back to a more natural self. This has really raised a lot of discussion for me and thoughts for me about, you know, celebrities, cosmetic procedures in general, influence having lots of cosmetic procedures and their audience following along with that, and the impact of that on young girls, and now what this impact will have on young girls and people who look up to Molly-Mae as a role model, and her reversing all of these procedures and now presenting herself as a much more natural version. I just would love to discuss this topic with you and get some of your thoughts and share some of my own. So if that sounds interesting to you, then stay tuned. So I'm going to be starting off with my ABH Brow Freeze, which literally, the more I use this, the more I love it. I just feel like I'm getting more and more used to it. It's obviously very different, like using my usual brow gel, but I do feel like as I get to know it better, the more it grows on me, the more I get used to using it. So yeah, today, obviously, like I said, I want to talk about specifically about Molly-Mae and her whole situation, but the wider kind of discussion there is just, you know, these cosmetic procedures in general, and whether we've reached the point at which people are starting to come back the other way. It's interesting because I feel like it's like any trend, you know, trends, they start off and they get more and more extreme. If you think about like brows, for example, they started off as like, you know, the McDonald brow. When I was in school, you know, the line, just one little line. And then I feel like they got bigger and bigger and bigger. And now they're kind of going back the other way to like a more natural brow. You know, it was that painted on Insta brow. And now we're going back more to like a natural brow with less done. You know, dip brow has kind of had its moment, and now people are using more like soap brows and more subtle, softer products in their brows. Like the trend has come back the other way. And I just wonder, when I heard about this, when I watched Molly's video, I thought, is this the start of that? Because if you don't know Molly-Mae, let me give you a bit of background on her. So she is 21 now, so she is young, you know, she has a young audience. Typically, you know, a 21-year-old, her audience on YouTube is probably the majority around the like 16 to 25 mark. That's probably the majority of her audience, a young, impressionable audience who look up to her. So she's 21 now. When she was 19, she went on Love Island. I'm going to have to assume that everyone knows what Love Island is, because if you don't, I just don't know what's happening. If you don't watch it, you don't have to watch it. I love it personally, but obviously lots of people don't. So, you know, that is allowed. But I'm assuming that most people at least have heard of the programme. So it's a reality show. The UK one, I think, was like the original, but it's now in lots of different countries. I know Australia and the US have it as well, have their own versions. But yeah, the UK was like, it's massive. It's a massive show. It didn't happen last summer because of COVID. But yeah, it's been a massive, massive show. It's huge. And it literally transports people from like someone, you know, living a normal everyday life to like they come out and they've suddenly got millions and millions of followers. So Molly-Mae, we first kind of knew about her, or I certainly first knew about her when she was on Love Island. So that was in 2019 when she would have been 19 years old. Now, when she went in, she actually had a bit of a following. She already was an influencer. Have to always do that when I say that word because I just hate it so much. But she was an influencer already. She'd already done like campaigns with Pretty Little Thing, and she had a YouTube channel, but it was not like, she probably had some, I don't know exactly how many followers, but it was probably around like the 150,000 at max mark. Now she has 5 million. So you can see she's grown quite significantly off the back of like her Love Island experience. So yes, she went in not completely unknown, not, you know, brand new to the kind of industry, to the influencer industry or to Instagram or anything like that. She'd obviously had a platform previously when she went in, unlike lots of people, and she had already had procedures. So she says she had her lips filled at 17, which is quite alarming to me. So she was already having procedures before she went on Love Island. I feel like nowadays, since Love Island became like massive, they recruit people. So in like the first couple of seasons, it was more organic. You know, you applied and everyone who went in was like kind of, you know, Joe Blogs off the street. Whereas now it definitely seems like with all those types of shows, like The Voice, Britain's Got Talent, they start off, you know, with people just applying, and now it's become like, you know, they talent spot and they find people that they want to go in, who already, lots of them have profiles. So Molly was on, I don't know what number season, but it was at least like the 4th or 5th. By that time, it was a big show. She was obviously, well, I don't know this, but she was presumably probably scouted, or certainly had like a leg up in the application process, given that she already was, you know, an influencer who was fairly well known. She, at that point, she said she already had lip fillers and she had her teeth done before she went into the villa. So she had composite bonding, which isn't like veneers, where, as far as I understand it, veneers, they like ruin your teeth, your natural teeth, into like points. They make them into these little like Dracula points, and then they put like essentially false teeth over the top. Molly didn't have that, so she had composite bonding, which is like a resin applied to the teeth to like fill gaps, make them more even, change the shape, that kind of thing. So she just had that done just before she went into the villa, presumably wanting to look her absolute best before she went in. She also said that she had had jaw filler, and it appears she didn't speak about having a boob job, but it appears to me like she's a very tiny, very, very slim girl, and she has some pretty fabulous boobas. So it looks to me like she's probably had a boob job, although she didn't speak about that. But yeah, so she certainly has had facial fillers. She said that she had her jaw, she had filler in her jaw, which was her like biggest regret. She had lip filler, she'd had her teeth done, and presumably, I don't know, cheek filler as well. That's a very common Love Island procedure. So yeah, she'd had some procedures done starting at like the age of 17, which I find that so young. And she basically, when she came out of Love Island, she was the runner-up, suddenly came out to 10 times the platform she must have had when she went in. And she then kind of maxed out on everything. I mean, she'd obviously already had some procedures, but when she came out, it was like, everything was like, you know, more, I need more lip filler, more filler in my face. Everything just got more. And I think that's, again, it's just something that is such a common thing. And by the way, I don't want anyone to think watching this video that I have absolutely anything against you doing whatever on earth you want to do, as long as it's what you want to do for yourself. I'm a firm believer that you do whatever you want to do, you know, Botox, fillers, there's nothing wrong with anything that you choose and want to do for yourself when it comes to your own body. Like, I am absolutely here for people just, you know, empowering their own decisions and their own feelings. I've never had any cosmetic procedures, so I don't have Botox, as you can see. I don't have filler. I've never had lip filler. I've never had anything like that. I have kind of considered having lip filler. I just don't, honestly, I don't have anything against any of these procedures, I have to say that, but I just don't care that much. That's the only way I can put it. I'm just not, like, I can't be bothered. It's not like I think, I don't really have any insecurities specifically. There's nothing that I'm like, I look in the mirror and I'm like, oh gosh, you know, that's really affecting my confidence or that's upsetting me. It's not to say that I think I'm perfect. It's not to say that if I think that if I went into like a plastic surgeon's office, they'd be like, oh, I'm sorry, there's just no improving on this. There's just nothing we can do here. You're just perfect. It's not like I think my body or my face is perfect. It's just that there's nothing that worries me or concerns me enough that I would want to fix it. I just don't, I don't care. I do not care. I'm fine. I'm fine with what I was given. I don't care enough to change it, really. I mean, like I said, I'm kind of curious about lip filler because as I'm getting older, my lips are definitely losing a bit of volume and a bit of definition, which I know lip filler can be good for. I don't necessarily want to make them bigger, but I wouldn't necessarily be opposed to, you know, just keeping them how they are as I age, I guess. It's like losing volume, I guess, preventing that. But again, I just probably will never bother because I just don't, it doesn't worry me that much. And since I've been on YouTube, I've always had comments about my teeth, which again, I have never in my life before I've been on YouTube had anyone say a single thing about my teeth or comment on my teeth, but it's definitely been one of the things that I get picked on YouTube for is my teeth, and I just don't see anything wrong with them at all. I do not see anything that I need to fix about my teeth. They're healthy, they're white, they're clean. I take care of them. I do not feel the need for them to all be the exact same size and perfectly straight. I just feel like that is just not a necessary expectation to have of someone. By the way, I don't think I told you that I was using the new Huda brow pencil, which I absolutely love. It's just perfect and it works really nicely with the brow freeze. I find like my KVD Beauty brow pencil didn't work very well with the brow freeze. It just didn't want to adhere to where I'd placed it, but the Huda one has no issue. So this is kind of like my go-to combo these days. Yeah, while I don't necessarily have anything that I feel I want to change or improve via cosmetic procedures, I have no issue with anyone wanting to do that for themselves. I understand that for lots of people, they have insecurities that they've always had and that they would like to change or in their mind improve that would make them feel more confident. And I think you should absolutely do whatever you feel is the right choice for you, driven by your own wants, needs, etc. This is the Urban Decay Wild West palette that I'm going to be dipping into today. What concerns me about cosmetic procedures is not the having them or choosing to have them. What concerns me is when you see people coming out of reality TV shows and feeling pressured or like suddenly being exposed to trolls and all the comments and everything that everybody has to point out is wrong with you and needs fixing and is ugly, and you have probably never experienced that before. You know, if you're not like Molly-Mae, you didn't go in an influencer, you went in an anonymous person living their own free life, and suddenly you're exposed to like this massive amount of hate on the internet that comes with having a profile or a platform, and it makes you feel like you suddenly need all this stuff doing. Like you're doing it because other people are telling you it's ugly or telling you need to do this or telling you these things about yourself that you were probably fine with until people started commenting on it. It's just, that really makes me sad. And there's a couple of cases that really stand out to me. One being Laura Anderson, who was another Love Islander. I don't think she was on the same series as Molly-Mae, but I can't remember. And the entire time she was in the villa, like the trolling and the press coverage of her, because she was a few years older than like your average Love Island contestant, she was a massive 29. 29 years old, right? That's what she was being called, a grandma, haggard, like being called old. She's so old. Oh my God. Like it was just vile. And she's 29. I mean, craziness it was. Obviously, while she's in the villa, she presumably didn't know that any of this was being said. But when she came out, all she got was a torrent of abuse, calling her old, saying how old she looks. Well, guess what? She was in a villa with people a decade younger than her. You know, the average age of people in the Love Island villa, it's like 18 to 22 is like the standard. I mean, Molly, like I said, was 19 when she went in. Of course, standing next to someone 10 years younger than you, you're going to look different. You're going to look older. You are 10 years older than them. The fact that that was like a reason to bully her and like call her old and a grandma, like she's 29. She looked 29. You know, she's a beautiful woman. She looked her age. Like, did she look 19? No, guess what? She wasn't. It was just vile. And then since she's come out, I saw a before and after, and she has completely and utterly transformed to like, I didn't even recognize who this was when I saw her, like in a photo of her in the press. I was like, who is that? And I couldn't even remember who it was. And when I realised who that was, I was just so shocked because she just changed so much. And I think, you know, good for her if she just genuinely wanted to change those things and she wanted to make changes and she's super happy. But if she felt pressured by random strangers on the internet that she had to change all these things, that makes me feel ill. I just think that is awful. That anyone would be essentially bullied into procedures that aren't, you know, 100% safe, that aren't easily reversed, and that, you know, as you get older can cause problems. You know, your body changes, your face changes, and then you get to a certain point, what are you going to do? You're going to do like just facelift after facelift. You know, when you get older, you kind of reach a point where too much cosmetic surgery can start to look bonkers. You know, it can be too much. We're all getting older, and it's crazy for us to potentially be like 65 trying to still look 30. There becomes a point where you can't continue to fight aging, and I just feel like that's why these procedures should be taken as a decision, a personal decision to do for your own reasons and under your own thought process, and not be bullied into it. I just think it's disgusting that happens. Another person that I kind of feel like goes hand in hand with this is a woman who was on the Australian Married at First Sight. That is like huge here at the moment. We're like years behind the Australian version. It's massive, so we're just kind of catching up. And there was a woman on there her name was Elizabeth, and she was like horrifically treated on that show and just humiliated by what I can only be described as like a raging, narcissistic, misogynistic man that she was sadly and unfortunately lumbered with on the show. And literally on her wedding day by her husband was awfully body shamed in the most horrific way. And the press were just, you know, ripped her apart for her appearance, and obviously the fact that her husband was like dragging her for her weight when she was in no way overweight at all. Well, the whole thing was like the most disgusting thing I've really ever seen on a reality TV show. And yeah, it was vile. So presumably this poor woman came out of this show and had all this bullying and trolling, and obviously her husband, having made these awful comments about her weight on their wedding day, would have just opened the floodgates for people to make these comments about her. And again, I saw like a before and after of her, and she has just completely changed every single last thing about herself, about her face, about her body. And again, if that was her choice and her choice alone, and it's something she's always wanted to do, and she's chosen to do that for her own self, that's fantastic. I love that for her. But if that was done because of the comments she received off the back of being on a reality show, and it's not something that she felt or worried about herself before she went on there, that really, I just find that awful. So back to Molly-Mae. So yeah, Molly exited and she just kind of stepped things up, I guess. Her lips got bigger and bigger, her cheeks got bigger, etc. You know, she seemed to get more and more tanned, hair more and more blonde and longer. And she has now reached this point where she feels like she regrets a lot of it. And she said in her video, you know, she did these procedures when she was so young, and your body and your face changes, you know, you gain or lose weight, you grow, and everything develops over time. And starting, you know, procedures at 17, it's just so young, you just really don't know what your face is going to look like at that age. You know, things can change a lot when you're 17, as far as your body, as far as your facial structure. And so she just really regretted it. She especially said she regretted her jawline filler because it gave it, in her words, it was botched, and she didn't like the structure it gave to her face. And her lips as well had just gotten too big. So she basically started on this road to undo it. She started off having the filler in her face dissolved and the filler in her lips dissolved. And then she had the bonding that she'd had on her teeth removed, going in with the Dior Natural Nude foundation now. She's also removed her hair extensions, and she didn't really talk about like her tan or anything, but she definitely appears like she's kind of calmed down the tan that she was kind of using at like her peak. She was definitely using like a lot. I think she actually brought out a collaboration that was a fake tan. So she was, yeah, fake tanning like beyond a kind of natural level of tan, with the very white bleached, very, very long hair and all of the filler and the teeth. And she had just kind of morphed into, I guess, like the typical Instagram influencer, Instagram model look, you know. I guess it's just a miracle that she never got a BBL, because that seems to be like the look, or it certainly was the look for a very long time, you know. Huge, big gluteus maximus, very skinny, tiny body, huge, big boobs, lots of filler in the face, lots of filler in the lips. That's kind of like become the norm when it comes to Instagram models and influencers. And it just goes to show that actually the problem with being influenced or copying people or doing procedures because of somebody else is, you know, now Molly has decided to undo it all. And presumably a lot of these influencers actually don't pay for their procedures, right? A lot of it is gifted or done, you know, in exchange for a shout out for the surgeon or a shout out for the clinic on Instagram, whereas obviously the rest of us will have to pay for all these procedures. And reversing these procedures a lot of the time is just as costly and just as risky as getting them done in the first place. And this is something that kind of concerns me, is I think it's fantastic that Molly's kind of reached this place where she's like, you know, I don't need these things, and I want to just be a bit more natural for myself and go back to like a more natural state, I guess, natural condition. That's fantastic. But I've already seen like comments on her videos and on her Instagram of people who have got these procedures because they want to be like Molly, or they want to look like Molly, and are now like, oh, like now I don't. Now she's having it all undone, so now I have to have it all undone. I think the trouble is that I think actually, as far as being like a role model, you could definitely have a worse one than Molly. I think she's generally a sweet girl, a nice girl who is certainly trying. You know, that's the thing. Is she always perfect? Does she make every perfect decision? Has she made some mistakes? Absolutely, of course, who hasn't? But at the very least, I feel like she's conscious of being a role model and that she's aware, and she is at least trying to be a good one. You know, we can't always pick the role models that we would prefer or we would choose for like our children or for teenagers. You know, they are going to be influenced by these people with huge platforms that are on TV shows that they like and that everybody at school is talking about, and you know, they want to look like them, they want to buy their clothes, they want to buy the hair tools that they bring out, they want to do the same things, go the same places, they aspire to be like her. So having these procedures done, it's whether or not she's telling her audience, oh, you need to have lip filler, oh, you should definitely get some jaw filler, it's life changing, whether or not she's doing that, which I don't think she has ever necessarily condoned these procedures. But by having them done, obviously a lot of her audience will want to have them done too and think that they need it done and compare themselves to her and think, I wish I had her lips, I wish I had her cheeks. And I think as parents, obviously, that is a very important thing, that we talk to our children and we try to counteract any kind of negative feelings that they have about themselves, comparing themselves to people that they see on the internet. But at the same time, I mean, Molly herself, she says she never told her mum. You know, she was 18 when she had her face filler done, and she didn't need her mum's permission, and she didn't tell her because she felt like her mum would go mad, which she probably would have done. And that's the thing, you know, when our children reach a certain age, it's kind of, you know, they don't need our permission slip anymore. And we have to hope by that age we've kind of set them up as much as possible that they will make their best decisions. But at 15, 16, 14, yeah, they might not be able to legally get the procedures without your approval or permission or help or support. And certainly getting the money to do it at that age should be pretty tricky. But ultimately, who they follow on the internet, who they aspire to be, who they look up to, it's very hard to affect that or to protect them from people that we would rather they weren't influenced by. And like I said, I don't think Molly is necessarily a bad role model at all. I definitely think there are certainly worse ones. Would I rather, you know, my children were influenced by like an astronaut or, you know, someone like an athlete? Yeah, of course. But at the same time, I feel like the more we try to influence our children's role models, the less likely they are to go along with that, you know, because children, they're tricky, they're tricksy. Kind of have to do a bit of reverse psychology sometimes. So I think at the very least, you know, she is someone who is honest about her procedures. She has talked about the majority of the procedures that she had done and why. So I think in some ways that's good, that she's not misleading people that she naturally looks this way or her lips naturally look this way. But at the same time, she is talking about procedures that she had at a young age on her channel, and people will think, oh great, you know, she got this done when she was 17. Mum, I'm 17, I want this done, and I want to look like Molly-Mae, and I want to have my lips like Molly-Mae. And, you know, now it just shows why you should never get procedures based on somebody else, because she has now changed her mind. So all these young girls who got their lips done because they want to be like Molly, or they had their filler done because they wanted to look like Molly, now, uno reverso, they no longer do again. So, you know, now are all of these people who did that, are they going to now want to undo it all? Which would be great. I think it's certainly better to be promoting, you know, a more natural appearance and kind of appreciating what you've got, and that we're all actually absolutely golden without all of this. I think that's great. But again, it's, you know, it's not as easy for someone who isn't a celebrity and doesn't have access to the same amount of money or the same free procedures as Molly to undo all these things. It's not as easy. And all of these procedures, having them done as well as having them undone, is not risk-free. So it's, you know, a scary thought, and also just a bit of a sad thought to think that there might be young girls who've had procedures done trying to look like Molly, who now are like feeling bad about themselves or feeling bad because she's decided she doesn't want it anymore. But I guess that is just a bit of a valuable lesson, life lesson, that, you know, you should be doing things based off your own feelings and your own what's best for you, because, you know, that's exactly what can happen. People change their mind, trends change. And I just wonder now, based off of Molly-Mae, is whether she's actually really starting something here. I really hope so, where, you know, people who have gone further and further in that direction, going down that direction of having all of these treatments done and all of these procedures done, who don't really need them, you know, who are beautiful without them, don't really need them, and actually just appreciating their natural, what their mama gave them. I just love that. I love that whole awakening of, do you know, we don't need any of these things. We're absolutely fine. Our lips are fine without being filled. Our faces are fine without being filled. And I think that's a fantastic message that she's delivering. I just guess it's a slight shame that she's had to go through this whole process, because I'm sure it wasn't easy, you know, in order to then have it all undone, because it's, you know, like I said, it's not cheap, it's not easy, and it is, I do feel a bit sad that she's had to go through all of that to just then realise she never needed any of it. And I just wonder how many young girls are now having regret and feeling like they've made these terrible mistakes because they were trying to emulate someone who's now changed their mind. You know, one of the other dangers that comes along with this whole plastic surgery and cosmetic procedure trend is that a lot of these people who can't afford these procedures, like Molly, you know, can afford to go to the best surgeon and fully research and has the support to do that and the means to do that. And that's if she's actually paying for it at all. Like I said, a lot of influencers will get procedures and things for free. I've actually been offered procedures. I've been offered full-on plastic surgery. Where was it? I think it was at Singapore. I can't remember now. It wasn't in this country. It was somewhere like Singapore. I think it was Singapore. I got offered to do a video, and I could basically have any plastic surgery procedure I wanted if I filmed it, and they were going to pay for me to go to Singapore, to stay there in the hotel, have the procedures, whatever I wanted. And I was just like, I mean, I would never dare. Like I definitely would never dare. Like I'm not trying to have surgery that isn't, you know, for the purpose of saving my life. That's just not something that I have children, you know, and I just couldn't risk something happening. And that's even if I felt, like I said, like I particularly wanted something, which I don't. But that is, you know, my small size. And it wasn't that recently. I was probably around 30k on here, and I'm getting offered, you know, free plastic surgery, let alone things like Botox and things like that you can easily, at her size, will be getting offered left, right and centre. And I guess, you know, if you're not having to pay for it and you're young and think, oh yes, everyone else has got that, it's probably quite hard to turn it down. But these young girls who don't have a platform aren't being offered it for free. I wonder how many of them are, you know, doing the old, oh, I'll go to Turkey and have it done on the cheap. And that's terrifying, isn't it? Because, you know, we've heard some horror stories coming out of people traveling abroad to, you know, clinics that aren't as safe. And then when they get home and they have no aftercare because they didn't have it done here, and like horror stories come out of these situations. So that worries me, that, you know, people who can't afford to actually have it done like in a professional setting in the country where they reside and have healthcare and follow-ups and all of those things, are just going where they can afford to have it done and just really not researching it. I can't even open this palette. So this is the Nars Euphoria palette. I'm just going to dip into these highlights here. When I first apply these, I'm like terrified every time because they are very high shine. See that? See that? See that? Which isn't my typical preference when it comes to highlights, but what you'll see is as you buff, they just blend in and can be buffed in to become really one with your skin, which is my preference. I do really like this formula because if you just want a massive bling cheek, then you can certainly achieve that. But if you just keep on blending, then it definitely can become a more like my style of highlight, a more subtle blended highlight that looks more glow, less show, which is my preference. So yeah, it's definitely a flexible little palette. I've tried these shadows as well and they are absolutely lovely. I haven't had any issues. This is quite a nice like little travel palette because you can have highlight and eyeshadow in one place. Really nice big size mirror. It's sturdy, so you don't feel like it's going to get smashed if you travel with it. So yeah, I wonder if we'll see other celebrities, other influencers kind of following in Molly's footsteps now and toning things down a little bit when it comes to procedures or having things removed or undone. It's going to be very interesting to see, because I think that's a very common thing that happens. Another person that I've seen speak or heard speak about this topic of getting plastic surgery because of trolling are the Geordie Shore girls. So is it Chloe? I think it's Chloe Ferry, who got absolutely ripped to shreds when she was on, originally when she first joined the show. I'm sure she still probably does now, but obviously when you first start on in an industry on a show like that, it's more of a shock because you've never experienced that kind of abuse and trolling before, and you feel pressured. Another Jessie out of Little Mix, her story again is, I think, is quite well known about the trolling and abuse that she received about her looks and appearance, and feeling like she has to lose weight and feeling like she has to change all these things about herself just to be allowed to live her life. And I wonder how many of those young women, have had lots of procedures and done and taken lots of steps based on what other people's opinion is of them, and would undo it all tomorrow if they could. This is one of the new shades of blush from Laura Mercier. This is Passionfruit. Bellini, I know I've worn it a lot in videos recently because that has like kind of become my favourite, but this one is gorgeous too. This is more of a, like, you can see it's more of a kind of pinky coral, whereas Bellini is like a very like peach, very light, subtle peach. This one is subtle too, and I'm just loving these very easy to wear shades at the moment. Absolutely perfect for spring. This is my favourite blush formula. I love it. They build so nicely as well. Ultimately, it would be amazing if we could get to a place where instead of having to undo these procedures and seeing like celebrities or influencers having to take these steps to undo, it would just become accepted and the in thing and the fashionable thing to be as natural as possible. I think, there's definitely become this trend, and it's very normalized now for very young girls under 20 to have Brazilian bum lifts and boob jobs and lip fillers and cheek fillers and hair extensions and everything else. And I just think, my God, where are they getting all this money from to do all these things? Like when I was 18, I was at uni and I didn't have any flipping money. Are you joking? To be having like lip filler, fake nails, hair extensions, boob jobs, like where are they getting all this money from to be doing all of that? And I just don't, at that age, I just didn't care about, I just can't remember caring that much about, any of those things. It just wasn't even on my mind. And it's so scary that there's so much pressure now from social media on teenage girls and expectation and normalizing that all these things, everybody's doing all of these things. And again, nothing wrong with it if that's what you want to do and that's your choice, to have these procedures done. But what worries me is how many of these people would have chosen to do any of these things if they weren't so popularized and normalized and so frequently seen on social media and reality TV and on influencers, that they feel that they need them, or they feel that they're lacking something because all they're seeing is people with much bigger lips and bigger boobs and bigger bums and bigger cheeks and all of these things, that they feel less because they don't have those things naturally. So I'm absolutely living for the fact that hopefully Molly-Mae, she is very influential. She has a huge following now, like across platforms. She's probably close to like 10 million or something. That's a big international following, and trends go that way. She's obviously influenced and been a part of lots of girls' decision to have fillers, to have lip filler, to do extensions, to do all of these things. And now I feel like she's influencing people that you don't need it, that actually she likes. And actually now she stands out more because, the way that she was looking with all these procedures, she looked like every other woman, every other young girl on Instagram. She looked like every one of them. They're all kind of cloning and morphing into this exact look, you know, very slim body, huge boobs, huge bum, tapered waist, big cheekbones, big lips. It's becoming, you know, very standardized, the beauty standard. It's this one exact look, very tan, blonde hair. You see the vast majority of influencers have a lot of those same features now because they're having these same procedures. So I just wonder now with Molly, she stands out so much more and she looks so beautiful and in her natural, you know, way that she hadn't done any of these procedures in the first place. This is just a beautiful young woman. And I would just like, I think that's amazing that this could potentially be the start of that being the trend, because people will look so much more different if we aren't always doing all of these procedures all the time. You keep your unique natural beauty and we will all look a lot different to each other rather than all becoming this one beauty standard, which makes young girls especially feel like they don't fit it. They don't fit this standard because I don't have very tan skin. I don't have huge lips. I don't have a huge bum. I don't have huge boobs. I'm not slim enough. And therefore I need to change all these things to become this way of looking. Whereas if there was a lot less representation of that and there was a lot more representation of looking how you naturally were, there'd be a lot more variation. You know, there'd be a lot more representation of different body types, different facial features, different skin colors, different skin tones, different everything, different hair color, even different eye color, feeling like you have to put contact lenses in because you want a particular color eyes, things like that. Like I'd love to see this be like the start of natural beauty coming back in. So I'm going to use the new Charlotte Tilbury Nude Romance. This packaging is life. I'm obsessed with this colour. It is like the perfect peachy nude. I absolutely love it. I love the feel and the finish of this. This is her kissing formula, so it's that kind of glowy, natural, luminous formula. I love it. So I want to go over and update you on some of the makeup that I used today. So this Urban Decay Wild West palette, I love this palette. I think it's so nice. It's very versatile. You know, you've got the greens in here that you can really deepen up with these mattes, and you can have that really punchy green look. The shimmers are like, they're not a patch on like a Pat McGrath Natasha Denona shimmer. They are much more subtle. They are very understated. Like today you can see I did a bronzy look. You can do a very natural bronzy everyday look, or you've got some options for like colour and fun looks in there as well. I really like it. I don't have any issues with it. This shade, this silver shade, is a bit of a dud. I will say that. It just, I always have to use it with a wet brush because to get any payoff from it whatsoever. The Brow Freeze, as I said, I've just been loving this combination with the ABH Brow Freeze and the Huda Brow Pencil. Is just it for me. I love it. They work so well together. You know, like I said, when I used this Brow Freeze initially, I was using it with my KVD pencil, and the KVD pencil just couldn't it couldn't adhere to the skin where Brow Freeze was, whereas the Huda one can, and they just work beautifully put together. And this is kind of my go-to brow combo now. The Dior foundation, I really like it. I don't love it as much as I like my Shiseido Natural Radiant, whatever that one's called, Radiant Lifting, and as much as I love the Tom Ford Shade and Illuminate, because it's less glowy. A hair less glowy. It's more of a natural finish, but it is very natural. You can get it to like a medium coverage. It wears very, very well. I don't have any issues with it. It's quite smoothing, fresh, healthy skin. I do like it, but it's not like in my top 3, I would say. The Nars palette, the Euphoria, is it Euphoria? The Euphoria palette, apart from the fact that I literally just never get it open, and I feel like I'm going to break a nail every time. Very easy to use shadows, very easy to use highlights, really nice little palette. I wish it had like a bronzer or a blush in there as well, because that would make it truly like a perfect one and done travel palette. So I'm kind of missing, like, I wish we'd had 2 highlights and a bronzer or a blush, so you were closer to a full face, if you know what I'm saying. But these eyeshadows were my first NARS eyeshadows that I tried, and I was impressed. I really liked them. It's kind of a soft wash of colour for every day, very easy to work with, and like I said, the highlight can really be worked into the skin to give you a more subtle skin-like highlight as opposed to like a beaming one. But if you like metallic highlights, it will also tick that box for you. The Benefit mascara, I like it. It's definitely not kind of got up there with the Pat McGrath Dark Star or the Charlotte Tilbury. It's kind of, I'd say it's probably fourth. I think it's probably gone below Mercier Big as well. I like it, but I don't love it. I feel like it quite quickly lost its amazing performance as I used it a few times. It quite quickly went away from like being perfect as it was when I first used it. These new blushes from Laura Mercier, these are my favourite formula. These two new shades that I have are like my two favourite shades. I love them. I wish she'd brought out some more shades in deeper colours, because there are some gorgeous deeper shades in this blush, but I feel like we could always use more. Yes, I especially feel like from this range I'm missing richer bronzy blush, because I've got Fresco, but it's quite light. I'd love a really rich bronzy blush next from her. This lipstick, like I said, it's just it for me. I love it. It's become like my go-to favourite nude. I absolutely love it. Okay, so there you have it. I hope you enjoyed this video. As always, please let me know what your thoughts are on this topic, whether you think this is like the end of, or the beginning of the end of really massively overdone, commonly seen cosmetic procedures, or if you just think that's just never going to happen and we're just stuck with it now, or whether you don't think it's a good thing that Molly-Mae has decided to go back more so to her natural self. Let's chat about it in the comment section down below. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I would love to see you in the next one. Otherwise, take care for now. Bye 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 bye.